Okay, today is October 12th, 2019, and we are at the Community Media Center in Westminster, Maryland. I am Bill Palm, interviewing Jerry Humberson. You're from Carroll County?
Actually, I grew up in Baltimore County, but I live in Carroll County now.
Okay, where do you live?
On Baldress Farm.
Okay.
I actually rent a old farmhouse out on Baldress Farm.
Fantastic. And so, at any rate, a few years ago, actually quite a few years ago now, when was it you entered the military and why?
1981. I entered the military because I was getting ready to graduate high school, and my mother came up to me one day and said, you need to decide what you're going to do with your life, because you're not going to hang around here. You're not going to hang around here and stuff, so you need to decide. So, I think 1 or 2 days after that, I was wandering around in the Loch Raven area, and I was going in to go to the Air Force recruiter. Was thinking about joining the Air Force. Nobody was there except the Army recruiter, and before you know it, I told him I wanted to do something with airplanes, and next thing you know, I was an airborne, signed up for airborne infantry.
Okay, for jumping out of airplanes.
For jumping out of airplanes, right.
Okay, and you did basic training?
At Fort Benning, Georgia. And
that's the infantry school.
Yeah, and then airborne school right after basic training, and then I was stationed at first of the 504th, Fort Bragg, North Carolina, 82nd Airborne.
Okay.
And I spent a few years there. Got levied, got sent to Heilbronn, Germany, and then I spent 2 years there, guarding Persian nuclear missiles. After that 2 years, I came back to the 504th, first of the 504th, 82nd Airborne, and was there about a year and a half, and then re-enlistment came up, and I re-enlisted to go back to Europe, but I wanted to make sure I was in an airborne unit, and so I re-enlisted unassigned airborne, and I got told I was going to this place. It was called a LRSU unit, which stands for Long Range Surveillance Unit, and I had no idea what it was, but it was an airborne company, and it just activated there in Stuttgart, Germany. And when I got there, and there I was in, I wouldn't say like a special ops, but we did, our mission was unique for an infantry company, because it's all about surveillance. We were the eyes and ears for the 7th Corps commander in case of Russia. Of course, just during the Cold War, decided to, go ahead and attack the West. Our mission would be we'd be underground in a high position, and when the enemy attacked, they would roll over us.
Oh.
And then we'd be behind enemy lines, and we would report, what we would see in the area of our team operation. Our teams were like 6-man teams. We would, we knew over 205 different type of Soviet bloc countries nomenclatures to their vehicles, tanks, trucks, and we would say if a convoy would go by, we would count how many vehicles and what kind of vehicles they were and stuff like that. And this is before, right around the time they had satellite, but we could give them an accurate, especially on like particular vehicles, whether they were command vehicles or they belonged to an artillery unit or it was going to be an infantry unit and stuff like that. And we would report it over the radio, and then that would be reported to the commander, and they would know what he has to deal with. So
Fascinating, fascinating. That's a specialized skill. I bet you're happy you never had to use.
yes, close. We did 2 combat missions in Desert Storm. So we were living underground in the desert, not a 6-man team, but a 4-man team. We dug a hole, and we stayed in that hole for 7 days. And of course, the Iraqis never advanced, but we were right there, and we could see all the planes attacking the Republican Guard, dropping bombs. I mean, you knew they were big bombs because the dirt would start falling in the hole, and
Ouch,
big,
yes.
you could see the explosions and the smoke, and a lot of the jets that would fly over would be shooting rockets and stuff, and it was kind of unique because at night you could really see it with night vision goggles, right? Because you could see the jets fly in the air, and the Iraqis use an anti-aircraft gun fire on them, and with the goggles on it, you could see like the rounds and stuff like that, and the rounds would never quite make it high enough for the jet, and then as soon as there was a what do you call it, a lull or a space between they were firing, the jets would just dive in, and you could see their missiles go off and hit, and they go up there and they see the gunfire again, and it would just kind of go up and then go down, so the planes were high enough where the gunfire wasn't going to be able to hit them. So we did that all the way up to our second mission. We pulled back about a day or 2 before the ground war. So this was during air war when we were living in the hole. Matter of fact, our unit was one of the furthest deployed units. So we had like 30 4-man teams just spread out across the Iraqi border right there. So.
Okay, I want to go back now just because we've talked about a whole lot of things. And you said, what was your favorite unit? Who did you identify with most?
F Company 51st Infantry, Lersu.
And
that was, they moved to Fort Bragg. It was a Ranger Company, right? Most people there, it was also an airborne company, but it was a Ranger Company, so most people were Ranger qualified.
So you were airborne Ranger.
Yeah, I kind of didn't make it the second week, not second week. I was there at the Ranger School for a month, but I ended up not being able to do one of the tasks there, and then.
Okay, so you ended up with a unit that was airborne Ranger.
Yes.
And
yes,
doing stealth stuff and.
Yeah, and we got to go to a lot of unique schools, a lot of NATO schools, LRF schools with NATO. So, like when we learned like the Soviet military vehicles, there was a basic recognition and a special recognition. So you would be in a class with maybe 4 Americans. The rest would be
German,
British,
French.
No, not quite French.
I'm sorry.
Belgium. Yeah. Some Greek, Italians, just basic, and a lot of them were specialized unit. So most of the Brits were SAS. So the school had like a let's see, the commandant was German, the sergeant major was British SAS, and then all the instructors were either Army Special Forces, Italian Special Forces, or some sort like that, or Greek Special Forces. Like I said, so it used to be a great school to go to because you would make, remarkable friends that you would, usually never would be able to meet. You know what I mean?
And you were in Germany for how long?
I was there from I got there just before 1986, and I left in 1992 after they deactivated 7th Corps. After Desert Storm, of course, they did a reduction, and of course it's because the wall had come down over there in Germany. So I was there in Germany at the same time when the wall came down, and
That would have been interesting.
it was interesting. It was
Just to be there as an observer.
yes, yeah, and some of the missions we did in that company, while we were there, we would do border traces. So we would actually come up to the go, and these were restricted areas. You couldn't wander. It was called a 1K zone. Americans couldn't wander in there towards the East German border, Czechoslovakian border, but we would get permission, and we would just walk up on the border, and we would get chances to see some Soviet vehicles, and actually see a Hind D fly, one of the Soviet helicopters that they call it a flying tank. Of course, the East German soldiers and Czechoslovakian soldiers, and you never wanted to go across the border.
No.
Right there, but the border was identified. All you had to do was take one step over the border, and you would be a border violation. Probably get in a lot of trouble. So
I would imagine one side or the other.
Oh yeah. And they would come up and they would take pictures of us and stuff like that, and we would just go to different spots and we would check these spots out, and then also we would go. They actually had pre-dug high positions there in Germany. I imagine it. Of course, I don't think it's classified now, but at that time they were classified. And these were positions where there was a good chance that we were going to be going in. And I mean, good built high positions, like 15 feet deep and fortified with wood and everything, and able to hold maybe a platoon or so of people,
And then all of a sudden that all went away.
As in
No fence, no.
Yeah.
How did that feel?
It was neat. It was neat because then you got to start seeing them really weird Russian cars, the little tiny ones, and the people coming, to the west side of Germany. And you got to meet some of them and stuff like that. Of course, we were getting ready to get deployed to Desert Shield around that time. So, and that was like the same year the Germans have won the World Cup, and so all kinds of things were going on. And
Did you follow the soccer?
oh yeah, we were out training one day in Stuttgart, Germany. Well, in a place called Ludwigsburg. We were actually training in like a park, and these guys were doing like kind of weird drills around there, and it was the German national soccer team that won the World Cup that year. They came up to us and we were talking to them and stuff. But to us, they were just like regular men. It wasn't until we, spoken. They were, especially, German people, you met these people because they were famous. And
Well,
stuff.
yeah. They were the pro athletes. They were the top line there.
Right, and they were holding a scrimmage game prior to the World Cup. It was like a scrimmage game against the Netherlands there in Stuttgart that weekend. So and I got to see some unique stuff out in Germany. Got Before the wall fell, I was downtown Stuttgart, and a motorcade was going by, and it had Mikhail Gorbachev in the car, and got to see him, and said, "Oh yeah, he does have a spot on top of his head," and
Yeah.
got of course, Rommel's son was the mayor of Stuttgart. So we got to meet him one time. And of course, just some of the stuff. It was like we would train we would train sometimes with 10th Group Special Forces down in Batholz. And that was right at the foothills of the Alps. And people would find, bayonets and stuff from World War II still laying out in the woods and things like that. Got to go to a German mountaineering school.
Okay.
So it was the German Army ran it, but so we went to the summer school, and we climbed mountains every day.
Yeah.
And then I got to go to winter school, and we would climb with the touring skis up to the top of the mountain, and then ski our way down. Got to watch the Germans do a controllable avalanche, with mortars. So that was really neat, I thought.
That would be, so you're setting your own avalanche with the mortar fire.
Well, we're sitting on another mountain, and they're shooting
You're watching them, yeah.
and shooting at another mountain and creating an avalanche. Yeah. So that was I thought that was really cool because that's a lot of snow that comes down. Because after it blows back up, then it like covers the sun out, and so that's why I love being in that company. I mean, 82nd was good, and the other units were good, but that company's where my heart was, as for being in the military.
Understood.
Yeah.
And then you got deployed to, well, you ended up in Iraq, I guess, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
So
And that's where you got your combat infantry badge.
That's where I got the CIB.
That you have on your chest.
Right.
Right.
So,
That you've got to respect.
yes, it's one. Any infantryman who has a CIB, is, Rangers get Ranger tabs. They love all that stuff, but you have to be at a certain place at a certain time to get a CIB.
Right. You have to be where there's combat.
Where there's combat, and you have to be infantry.
And infantry, yes,
Yeah.
indeed. And you were starting to tell me earlier about being deployed there in Iraq. You were well in advance of any established lines, right? You were.
Yes. So we were up there, and we were waiting for Saddam to come, and he never came. So, one of the hardest things was living in that hole for 7 days.
And you were dropped in there by.
We came in by. So what we had was like pre-made. We had 4x4s that we cut. So we did do a training hide site before we did a real hide site, and we had a 3/4 inch plywood. we found a piece of carpet
Mm-hmm.
and sandbags. So we flew in on an MH, thinking about was it Chinook's nomenclature, but it was MH.
Mm-hmm.
It has an internal fuel tank, so it could fly longer. It was a Chinook, and
So it had the two helicopter blades. It was
Mhm.
built like a cigar.
yeah, and it had a chain gun, and then
Mm-hmm.
they had snipers that sat in the window. So wherever the Chinook landed in the desert, that's where we dug.
Mm-hmm.
So in between the wheels that it made in there. So we landed like about 10, it was like 10 o'clock at night.
Mm-hmm.
And it was four of us, and we dug and fortified the hole with sandbags, and we dug the ground level, deep enough to put 4 men and our equipment in there, and I guess we finished just before the sun came up. So before the sun came up, we were like trying to get rid of all the extra dirt and spread it out, and we had little doors that popped up with burlap. So while we were in there, so two would be on and two be off, and so we would do it like maybe 4 or 6 hours at a time. 2 people be up, and then 2 people rest. Like you really couldn't rest in a hole like that, and especially when the bombing was going on and stuff.
Yeah. So you were in hill country or
Flat
just
desert.
flat desert?
Just flat desert.
So, and you were camouflaged enough the Iraqis had no idea you were there?
Right, we were totally underground.
Mm-hmm.
So it was just like, it was just flat. It was all flat. We dug the hole, and it was all flat. It was no mound there or anything like that. We used HF communication. So we had specialized antennas. HF communication. So our communication was going to England, and then they would forward that information from England back to. So you could communicate up to like I think 2,000 or 3,000 miles away. These were unique antennas. You got to bury them underground, and then we had claymore mines buried around the hole, just in case
someone tried to sneak up.
Well, if somebody came out, or we got detected and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Of course, we weren't there to fight, so if we got detected, it was more,
How do you get out of there?
how do you get out of there and then go into an escape and evasion, which you had a plan, an escape and invasion role where you would have to go to certain areas, and they were called designated areas of recovery, and hopefully get picked up, and just keep on moving until you either get back to friendly or
not.
Well, hopefully, yeah. But a 4-man team can't fight a platoon or anything like that.
No.
So our job was not to get detected.
Yes.
So,
Yes. Yeah.
So but it was unique. It was fun. I'm sure the LRSU units and stuff now, their operations a little different now than what we did. I really don't know exactly, but their primary goal is to go and do reconnaissance and see what's out there.
Yeah. Now, I imagine the Iraqi army had some Soviet equipment.
Yeah. So you had some of the BMP ones, of course, they all had like T-55s.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't see anything more than older than a T-55 tank.
Yeah.
That's it. And then they had the I'm trying to think. I think it was the BM-21 multiple rocket launchers. So we got, because Czechoslovakian army was part of so they had Soviet equipment.
Mm-hmm.
So and the Czech army was right next to us in Saudi Arabia. So we got to see their equipment. So that was kind of unique. But
Yeah. Okay.
we even had a soccer game with the Czech soldiers. So while we were after the war was over, of course.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Mm-hmm. But did you, while you were in your position, did you get to observe enemy forces in maneuvers or anything? Or
No, most of it was just bombing.
Okay.
Bombing, and we did report, what we observed. As for,
Mm-hmm.
The bombs or where the explosions were, estimated distance. We did have grid coordinates where we were, so we would try to, estimate exactly where the bombs were hitting.
Mm-hmm. Did you have GPS equipment?
That's when they just started coming out.
Yeah.
So that's, you had to know how to do a grid coordinates to be able to make it work. It
Yes.
wasn't like saying.
Yeah.
And I think the GPS could get you within 100 meters,
Mm-hmm.
depending on how many satellites at that time. We also used Lowrance,
Mm-hmm.
which their beacons, they have beacons set up all over the world. And that you had to be able to know how to do latitude and longitude. Again, when you got to the place you wanted to go, it was depending on how many beacons or how many, but it would bring you within 100 meters of, the point you're trying to look for. But out in the desert, everything's the same. I mean, so.
Yeah, I mean, you don't, you see a little ridge in the distance, then you see another ridge in the distance, and you don't know what's
Well,
over
I
which.
didn't see no ridges.
No ridges, just flat.
Just flat.
So
It just
Trying
went and going.
trying to get a sense of distance is tough.
Tough. Yeah.
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 But we kind of knew how far, where we were at,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
we just, yeah. I knew some of the bombs were a little over a mile away and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
but we could feel them. We could feel the concussions and stuff like that that was coming from the planes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, this has been indeed fascinating,
Okay.
and it's just really good talking to you.
Yeah. And if anybody's in Maryland or Westminster
Mm-hmm.
from F Company 51st Infantry, I say, long range, who,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, it was a good life when you had it, huh?
Yeah. The Army's a great life. I mean, it's
Mm-hmm.
it's the hardest job that anybody could do, but you get to do some remarkable things and see remarkable things that, anybody, a billionaire would never get a chance to do,